Hey, everybody. I'm Trevor Dykstra at the Seattle Design Festival. Thank you very much for joining us for our inaugural virtual main stage. It's the very first day. I am here with my co-hosts. Let's bring him in. Here's Cal Dobrzinski. Cal, hello, how are you?
Hi, everyone. Good. How are you doing, Trevor?
Pretty good. We've also got Tyler Schaefer. Tyler? Oh, Tyler, you're muted. A very common thing nowadays.
That was bound to happen at least once, right?
For sure. And then all the way from Hungary, we have George Zatlaka. George.
Hi, everybody.
So, what's in store for us today? Who wants to share the lineup? Tyler, tell us what's up.
Well, I don't have the full lineup in front of me. I think Creative Mornings is off first, right? We're going to have them in a few minutes. And
Actually, we've had a schedule change, so they're unable to make it this morning. So we're going to have a little bit of. We're actually going to look at the talk about the block party first, and then we'll be joined by KAVE USA.
okay.
And then we'll end it up with an interview with the Seattle Bouldering Project to close out our day today. Speaking of which, the block party was this weekend. If you can't tell from all our burnt faces.
Lots of sunscreen.
Yeah.
It's needed.
George, you missed it, so we shot some video for you that we'll share.
I was able to walk George through the festival both days, which was actually really awesome.
Yes.
So we Zoomed together. George is in Hungary, if you missed that earlier. So I walked him around via Zoom pretty late in the evening for him, but it was during the afternoon for us. We showed him what we were screen printing totes. We showed him all the installations. And he got to have kind of an immersive experience while he couldn't be here in Seattle.
And I just would like to add that that whole thing just happens like instantly, almost like an improvisational mode. When I exchanging some messages with Carl, and all of a sudden, like, why not we just do this? And then, okay, when you want to do it now? And we were on the air. And I think this was a great test, not just test, but a proof of what we could do with today technology instantaneously. And I was there. I meet with people who I used to work with. It was a fantastic experience. We'll talk about it more. It was super. Thanks, Carl.
Yeah.
Which is kind of another reason why we're doing this event, this virtual Mainstage event, to make it more accessible for those people that can't attend in person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I actually, that relate to that. We just had a short talk. Carl and I worked in a disability arena a little bit, and I just thought this would be a fantastic way to expand this inclusivity. Because now we can, with this method, this system, we could have anybody be part of the festival. Someone who in a hospital or could not move or something. I was here, the other side of the globe, and I really felt I'm there and enjoyed it. So, I think it's not just for us. Would be a great way to spread the word about design, but also the inclusivity. That boundless, that incredible width we can reach. That's just blew my mind. I think it was a good test and lesson what we could do.
Definitely, I think it's a good way. Technology is an amazing way to reach people who can't be there physically. So hopefully, in the years to come, we'll be able to promote more, inclusive practices, whether that's like through technology or what have you, for folks who can't be there, physically in that space for the block party, at least.
Mm-hmm.
That and for more of a global reach, right? To get out there and make the Seattle Design Festival larger than just a regional thing.
And perhaps larger than 1 week a year, maybe.
Year round. Well, okay, so we sent Adrian out with a camera and a recorder, and he shot some video. Let's take a look at that, and we can come back and chat about it.
Hi, I'm Tehila Ben-Gershom, and this is the city's canvas collaboration. This is with MG2 and Bailey Construction, and our kind of design intent was to have the community be as interactive as possible. Our archways are rotating, and we encourage the community to be able to leave their mark and make artwork, write a note on our canvas pieces, to either just inspire or just to kind of have a little creative outlet while they're amongst the festival, and be able to just continue adding to our design with their color and whatever inspirational quote they might want to put.
I'm Sophia. I'm helping with running this labyrinth installation. It's a two-person game. One person helps the person navigate, so you go left, right, and then the other person at the back of it moves the little avatar through the maze. And when you hit a sticker, it corresponds to a bucket on this side, and you pull out a fragment of a poem. And the idea is, by the end of the maze, you have enough fragments to build your own poem. And so people have been getting really creative with those. We've got our bulletin over here of like what people have been putting together, and so they're super fun. I don't know, I'm really liking the 3D elements. People have been cutting out their paper into fun shapes. Yeah, we've had some 3-year-olds knock out some like really hard-hitting poems. It's cool, yeah.
All right, let's bring everybody back in here. So that was a quick look there at the block fighting. I figured I'd leave this up for a bit and we can talk about various things, use the visuals. Did any of you have a favorite from this weekend's installation or experience?
I think a
Conversation.
favorite would be difficult for me, but I really enjoyed the MBBJ. I think it was GLY construction, and they're like Forest Network, I think it was called. And I really loved that experience of getting to plant my own, tree that will be 110 feet tall one day. I think that's really awesome, and I get to plant it in September. It comes in a biodegradable, compostable kind of, shell, and I get to plant that, and I'm really looking forward to having something to do outside of the festival that still pertains to the overall theme of connection. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it carries on.
Yeah, I took my son, who's 8, to the festival on Saturday, and he certainly liked Whirly Pong, Trevor, or you and the Seattle Design Nerds installation. That was his highlight. He played that, I don't know, must have been 45 minutes.
That's great. Yeah, that was a good one. I mean, everybody loves them all, right? They're all.
I think this installation too. I think it was called Memory Strings. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really interesting. I'm particularly interested in memory and sharing like shared memories, and I thought that was a lovely way to kind of visualize shared experiences throughout festival goers, different backgrounds and memories and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's the Pong.
I think some people related that game to almost like hacky sack.
Yes,
as long as you can keep it up in the air.
It's collaborative versus competitive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Think about
Yes.
That. Yes. They did lovely tunnels. And, everybody approached connection in a different way. I really did. I like this one a lot. Simplest. A lot of times the simplest installations at this event are the best ones. Asking folks on one side to guide people on the other through a maze, and then there were at each point here there were kind of a series of prompts based upon the color. So that would pull a piece of a poem, So if you hit the red one, you'd pull from the red bin, and then you were making a poem from these random lines, which actually resulted in some really cool
Definitely.
poems.
These students these are actually two students that I TA'd when they were freshmen. So it's really awesome seeing them. You know, they're still students. I think they're going to be upcoming seniors, but they really put in a lot of effort into this, and it's really nice seeing students engaged in some capacity throughout the festival. They also have like a 10-minute talk tomorrow, a pre-recorded talk that Sophia and Camille put together. So that will be interesting, and hopefully you guys can tune in to that tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be great. You know, while we're here, got a little bit of time before our next one. We can look at a few photos. This may be dangerous because none of this has been processed. But hopefully this will work here. Let me see. Will this? Oh well, this is good enough. Yeah. So you know, we got our whirly pong. One thing I think that didn't make it into the video, HOK had a really interesting piece, dome structure, and then each of these shade elements spins in the wind. Tyler, you should talk about the LMN installation.
Yeah, the one in the back there, not in the foreground, but in the background there, that winged shape pavilion. We called it equipoise, which means counterbalance, and it drawed on the inspiration. We wanted to connect with the culture of the region, and so and as well as the site. So we drew on the maritime and sailing industry, as well as camping culture. So it created this sort of hybrid tent and sail. But tents are very enclosed, and so by raising it up, it kind of created this large sail, which is much more inviting. And I think it was nice. You know, we got a lot of good feedback. It was a kind of a nice little social gathering spot for the festival, and it provided some shade, which I think everyone appreciated.
Yeah, and we should say new this year was the SDF Pavilion, which I can't speak too much to the competitions of. I don't think all of us are aware of how that worked, but yeah, there was a competition for the pavilion, which I am pulling up now. This is the fun of live. Here we go. Designed by Johnston Architects. This is hopefully the inaugural pavilion of what will be many pavilions, or at least the start of something. It really got some great use. You saw in the video there where it was a band shell for a bit. This is inspired by kite design, which George, I'm sure, could tell us all about, and pretty stable. It was a great addition to the festival this year. Any other items? Actually, you know that. Well, here, let's talk about this one. The the can installation as well. It was a pretty great thing there, using that old idea of connecting two cans for a telephone. This was interesting. When the wind blew, it would really make some noise as well. So.
Yeah, my son really enjoyed this one too, when we asked each other questions through the cans and could hear each other.
Yeah, definitely. A few shots of that.
I think this was also another kid favorite, where you got to TP a structure.
I saw people having a blast on this one, so they were throwing the material over to friends and things like that, catching it back and forth. People are having so much fun with that.
And beat roulette.
Oh yeah, saw a lot of
You been doing any dancing
kiddos
over
on this
there?
one. Yeah, and I had fun on it. I got to dance a little bit on it too. It was great when you stepped on different shapes, different sounds were played through the speaker, and like the shape of around the platform mimic different, I think, like sounds and vibrations and things like that, which is pretty awesome. And the volume was a great addition too, to add some noise to that side of the park.
And color.
Oh yes, lots of color. They did tie dye their SDF t-shirts as well. So they brought white t-shirts that we screen printed for them, and then they spent a long time dip dyeing all of their t-shirts and tie dyeing them, which turned out lovely. And everyone looked great. I wish we had thought of tie dyeing our shirts. It looked awesome.
Yes. There's our ping pong table. We also had a pop-up zone with various experiences. This was an installation in that area. It's actually another installation at Coyote Central. All those the young folks from that org got together and built this. Actually built this earlier this summer. This is one of several installations that received a grant from the festival in order to produce their piece. And we're grateful to have them. They did a great job.
And if you're interested in the festival as a student or individual who is looking for a grant, we do provide micro grants. So that's always something that you can apply to. If you're wanting to get involved with the festival, but perhaps don't have the funding to, no worries. We can try to help you out there. So that's always something to be aware of when you're applying.
We should give a preview of what's coming up in this week for the festival calendar. So this is the second festival element after the block party weekend here. So we get the main stage this morning. We'll have a community spotlight in Fremont today, starting at 4 p.m. Anybody want to elaborate on that one? Tyler, Cal, either of you.
Sure. So I'll be there at Fremont Brewing at around 5 p.m. So from 5 to 8 at Fremont, we'll be just talking about the festival, handing out festival maps, talking about the rest of the week. And then there's also the Fremont Arts Council is having something going on. I'm finding the address right here in case you want to go. It's 3940 Fremont Avenue North. And then the Dow Built Partners and Craftsmen are also opening their doors at 4001 Aurora Avenue North. And then there's also an inclusive partnership walking and rolling neighborhoods tour by Code Unlimited.
Yeah, and that one will be cool. I mean, it's a chance for folks to understand what it's like to try to navigate specifically that neighborhood in a wheelchair. And so they'll be out. I think the tour starts from Fremont Brewing, and we'll tour around the neighborhood from there.
Yep, it starts at 5 p.m. If folks would like to meet there.
For sure. And then coming up later this week, we have the Columbia City Community Spotlights that evening on the 24th. That'll be Wednesday this week. And that'll be all over Columbia City. I believe at the farmers market. Our KAVE folks will share something in a bit here about that. That'll be happening there, as well as First Lamp. And then Code Unlimited will be there again at that event, doing a similar tour. And they are starting from the farmers market area and then touring out from there. And then finally, we have another community spotlight on Thursday during the day, and that'll take place all over downtown. Our hub areas will be the Center for Architecture and Design at 1010 Western, as well as there's one other location there I'm missing. Does anybody remember? Our website has all the details for these, so you don't necessarily have to rely on our expertise. But that's our third item happening. And of course, get the closing party this Friday night coming up, and that should be a lot of fun. Any other things we want to mention before we switch over to our panel?
I would like to say a couple of words from a different angle. I'm on the other side of the globe. I participated. Carl took me around with a Zoom, which set up like this instantaneous participation, and it was really not planned. It just came together. And so I'm working basically researching what event and things affected evolution, how we change, and I just see the festival. It's like this originality, creativity, technology combined. It's driven by contribution and participation, and that's the major part. That's why we are so popular, and we have staying power, because that is the origin of the concept of being successful. So if we think back, long time, successful was basically driven by how much you can contribute and participate in the community. That meant, and it's kind of changed by time. But this shows me, how people so happy to talk about the design. It will almost like automatically drives people into the acceptance, realization, or refiring those neurons, because of the way how we make decisions originally. Making your own research, analysis, and decision making based on your own values, inclusionary also, and that's design. So if we can communicate, and people come there because they almost looking at design as an entertainment. So opposed to the usual way how we look at design as this high, far away, expensive, or there's all kind of concept about design. But the design deep down is basically this creative and decision making process, and I see that as a major benefit what we do with all of the activities and happiness. Your kids come playing and families could be enjoying. It really comes back to that participation and contribution, which is the successful. So I really hope, especially with technology now, that we can get in this second wave. Now, it might be a little bit too far, but if we look at the history of evolution, communication was a major jumping stone every steps when we made these leaps, almost like historically. And I think if we use the technology today, right, like we have several examples, and I personally know how enjoyable was that I can see that if we use technology in the right way, we could get another leap in our culture, in our human culture, and reason. So homo reasoning, not Homo sapiens, because that's kind of, we know, failed a lot of place. But if we can have the design, creative, and the design process spread, and people look at it as a way to feel successful, I think we did a great job. I'm excited about it.
Well, let's carry on the convo with KAVE USA. So we're gonna take a little short break, and then Tyler will pop back up on the screen here with the folks from KAVE, and we'll continue the show. Thanks, everybody.
See you in a few.
See you later.
Well, hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to our first virtual main stage event. Drink and Walk Your Coffee is design a puzzle, a problem, or a place. This is a panel discussion brought to you by KAVE Footwear. My name is Tyler Schaefer. You saw me in the introduction. I'm an architect in Seattle, and I'll be the moderator for today's panel discussion. The panelists today are a diverse group of professionals with it's more like an eclectic group of people that will share their unique perspectives on design in their respective fields and how they approach design process utilizing this nexus of connection. Um, so first, I'd like to introduce our panelists. We have them on screen here. First, Ava Klabalova from the Czech Republic. She's the designer and founder of KAVE Footwear. Megan Arno is with the Eileen Fisher Renew program. David Francis is a PhD of modern poetry and critical theory from University of Washington. Joey Manson is the executive director of Seward Park Audubon Center. And Michael Bell is the leader of KAVE USA and the organizer of this panel discussion today. Before I begin the panel, what I'd like to mention to all the viewers is that if you do have any questions throughout the panel discussion, please drop them in the chat. There should be a chat feature on your screen. And we'll be posting those throughout the panel discussion, and you can do that at any time, and we'll try to answer those questions. There should be a short Q&A period at the end that we can hopefully get to any questions that we missed throughout the panel discussion. So let's start off. Ava, why don't you tell me about yourself and your company?
Okay, thank you for introducing me. So my name is Eva Klabalova, and I'm founder of brand KAVE Footwear. And I will actually share a presentation about my sneakers because it's always better to see the designs than just to talk about everything. So I'm going to tell you everything about the philosophy behind the brand, why I established the brand, and all the important things. So if I can start.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay, can you see my screen right now, please?
We do not see your screen.
Okay, now it should be better.
There we go.
Okay, perfect. My brand is called KAVE Footwear, and I am actually based in Czech Republic. Where is it? In the center of Europe. This is this really small country which is called Heart of Europe because it's really in the middle. And this is where everything started. Actually, before I was in China, I was working for big brands like Adidas, Timberland, and I was flying to China very often. And one day I was staying in the balcony and I couldn't see the factory which was behind me, just few meters, in front of me, which you can see on the picture of the down. This is the picture during nice day, and picture on the top of the screen. This is what I saw, and I couldn't breathe. I was feeling really bad, and I started to cry. And the only thing was that I just thought that I want to be away. I want to go home. I don't want to be in this environment anymore. And I was able to run away. But what about these people who are working here, who are working in the footwear factories to earn money for their families? On the right of the picture, you can see the parking lot of motorbikes. And this was actually the point where I said to myself, okay, I don't want to be part of this mass production anymore. I want to go home and I want to work with local production, with local factories, and to create sustainable business, not just for me, but also to help local economy in Czech Republic. Um, So I came back to the factory, local factory, which had a lot of tools in storage, and these tools were not used. Some of these tools are from the middle of the last century, like 50s. So I went to the storage and I pick up all these old pieces and started to use them in a new way. So I combine them in a new way in order to create new product. So the result were sneakers which are made in Czech Republic. And these sneakers are made out of the leftover stock of rubber, which was here in the factory as a leftover after bigger production of bigger brands. So I started to collect these pieces and started to press them together in order to create completely new design. And here you can see that also the molds on the left side are from 1955. And this is actually the moment which I love the most, when I am actually able to connect tradition with new design thinking, new innovative thinking in order to create new products. So these sneakers are made out of leftover materials in limited collections, usually just 100 pairs only from each model. And the most important thing is with minimal ecological footprint and without moral hangover. What does it mean? It means that that you know who actually made these shoes, and you know that these shoes were not flying to you from the other side of the world. If you are in Europe, so for you in the US, it would be a little bit different, but this is the idea behind it. And what is the meaning of cave? It's actually not coffee, but I'm going to talk about it later. But it's my name backwards. Because I think that if you want to establish something, you really need to step behind it. You need to be there as a person. So this is what I did. And coffee came later, I will tell you. So, as I said, each pair is original. Here you can see the process how the sneakers are actually made. So I take the leftovers of rubber, different pieces in different colors, and press them together. And because of this, no pair is ever the same. Each pair is always different. So you, as a customer, you are always completely sure that you are the only one who is owning this pair, and nobody else has the same one. And because of that, also the sneakers are also collectible items. And here is the coffee. Why coffee? Because I love coffee, and every day there are billions of cups of coffee of coffee drank in the world, and there is a lot of tons, like billions of tons of leftover coffee beans. So I went to the coffee place to use coffee beans and dry them, and then mix them together with natural rubber to create material for the outsoles. So on the picture, on the outsoles, you can really see the dots, and this is real coffee. And the most amazing thing about it is that these shoes actually smell like coffee, and it's not just a marketing tool to use a coffee, but the coffee is working in the outsole as a filler, so the outsoles are much lighter than new ones. And also you need to use less new material, so there are a lots of benefits. And this project actually became really famous. And the funniest thing is that most of the people think that the name cave actually means coffee. But as I said, no, it's my name backwards, and the coffee came later, and it's just perfect fit. And there is another stream of my brand, like another really important point, that I am actually recycling worn-out sneakers. So all customers can send the worn-out sneakers back to me, and I clean them, grind them, and use these small pieces as a base for a new material for the outsoles. And this is also part of my PhD studies. It's all about the recycling and creating new materials and finding new ways in design and materials. So this project should be finished this year. So you will see a lot of amazing results. These are actually the materials I am using. On the left side, you can see the leftovers from the production. pieces of rubber in different colors, and on the right side you can see already the grounds, which are ready to be used for the outsoles. And the brand is really strong in collaboration with artists, because to collaborate with artists means to create communities, to connect with people, and to enter to different social bubbles. And here you can see projects from which part of the money went to the charity. So I am also really happy that I can help to people through my work, and I am really happy that customers want to help as well. Thank you for that. Here is the selection of models. So you can really see that the models are in really different look, and it's practically the same model, like low top or high top. But I'm really playing with the materials and combining different colors, so you can always feel that the design is completely new. But practically, it's more game around and to combine just what you can imagine, and to create communities. Also, is coming also together with workshops, because I am also teaching people how to make shoes, and everybody can actually attend this workshop. So here you can see pictures from Jerusalem, Israel, from Netherlands, Republic, Italy. So maybe the next one will be US. Let's see. And it's really nice to see how these people are coming to me, and they have actually the same idea about the sustainability, and the same view to the world. And each of us should be responsible for what we are wearing, what we are buying, and just like that we can change the world as a community. So thank you so much. I am sending warm greetings from Europe to Seattle, and if you have questions, I am ready here to answer your questions.
Well, that's great, Ava. I just love your personal story of, you know, where you started, and how you put the moral hangover. I like that phrase. If we all felt a moral hangover every time, you know, we participate in some sort of environmental degradation, you know, we would all be in a better place.
I
And I
absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, and I love the charity work that you're doing. That's great, and these international workshops. That's fantastic. Um, the recycled material that you use, I think it shares some parallels with, I think, what Megan is working on with Eileen Fisher's Renew program. So I think you know, Megan, maybe you could tell me a little bit about that program.
Sure, Tyler, thanks. Really happy to be here with these really amazing people. Eva, thanks so much for sharing your story. I love the KAVE background. As you were speaking, it just, you know, as Tyler was saying, there is so much connection in terms of, I think, some key kind of motivational and historical factors that like brought us each into the realm of sustainable fashion. So for example, Eileen Fisher Renew, you know, it's a very different story, but you know, we grew out of a major fashion brand here in the States. Eileen Fisher has produced clothes since the mid 80s, and we have long been identified as being or she has been identified as being a trendsetter in the field of fashion, of being, you know, maybe even ahead of her time in terms of sustainability and worker and labor rights, and you know, kind of making these connections, as you were pointing to in your presentation, about sustainability being a core motivating principle in terms of how you know, materials are sourced and workers are engaged, and how we bring the clothes into the world. So that's for like the you know, first life, as we call it in Eileen Fisher. I operate in the second life. I operate a resale program called Renew. We have 2 brick and mortars in the States, one here in Seattle and the other one in Irvington, New York, near our home offices. And then we are online at eileenfisherrenew.com. Now, the business is basically supported through a take-back program. In 2009, Eileen Fisher, through their foundation, launched a clothing take-back program where we basically put a stake in the ground and said we're responsible for the full life cycle of the garments we bring out into the world, the things we produce. And in doing, in creating that program, we call back our clothes and invite customers of the brand to bring their Eileen Fisher pieces into our program. We call it our Take Back program. People get credit for in-store shopping, whether they're shopping new, gently used pieces, or in the buying new pieces through the main line. It kind of helps promote this sense of circular shopping. It helps us to fold more people into the ecosystem of our brand in terms of where and how people participate and buy in. But so the challenge though is that we are collecting clothes that don't have a clear next use. And so I think, in terms of what you were speaking to, Ava, finding things at an apparent end of life cycle, like your presses or your molds, and trying to, recreate something from something that existed before. I think it's so beautiful about, just thinking of the history of things and how they, the life cycle of things are carried through, right? So each garment that's in my store may have been part of a previous collection, but when it gets to here, it is a unique piece. Each piece stands as a representation of the person that walks with it through this world, right? So I think that sense of a one of a kind, the treasure hunting is a really special type of experience we get to have in resale, which I think it mirrors your kind of one of a kind model in terms of, each piece you create is unique and comes from things that have walked through this world already before. So I guess, let's see, let me get a little bit about the nuts and bolts, I guess, about the business. So we operate this Take Back program nationally. As I said, last year, we collected over 250,000 garments. Over the course of our program, we've collected over 2 million garments and dedicated ourselves to finding the next best life for those pieces. That may take many forms. Resale is the easiest option for us, but we are also investing in research and development for textile recycling, fiber to fiber recycling. We have this wonderful felting technology which can reclaim items down to the scrap to create new original textiles for art or industry. And so we're really excited about the opportunities that the challenges bring, right? Like challenges create opportunity and innovation. I think that goes back to what Michael maybe presented as the overall kind of the framework for a conversation today, right? Is design a puzzle, a problem, or a place. And, the puzzle is that innovative spirit where we piece all the pieces back together. The problem, I think in the sense of where we hold the line in our businesses, Ava, is that environmental impact, the impact of pollution and extractive technologies in terms of that linear cycles of use and disuse. So addressing that moral hangover. And then place, where we engage people. I like to think that this is a really community spirited type of venture. Innovation requires partnership and collaboration. And so I'm just really excited to be in a space that is leaning into these challenges and really working hard to find solutions that, just a few years ago felt quite insurmountable.
Yeah, that's great. I have some follow-up questions, but I want to make sure we have time for the rest of our panelists. So we'll circle back with both you, Ava, and Megan. David, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your focus of study and how you fit into the conversation.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm coming from an academic background. I have a MFA and PhD degrees in contemporary poetry. For a while, I had an academic career. More recently, doing administration of arts and culture programs, public art program in City of Shoreline for the past 7 years. Volunteered at Carkeek Park. I briefly had an experience with the Seward Park Audubon Society when they were exploring Carkeek Park there a few years ago. But my approach to design is through a sort of wide-ranging imagination in both literature, fine art, and then the practical experience of being on the ground with fabrication and contracting. So for me to segue a little bit from hearing from Ava and Megan, with design, I see us in a period of change with a focus on aesthetics. So in the past, very interested in things like, types of rubber and different material choices and different, knit uppers came in 2012, 3D printing in 2020, 2013. But I see us changing away from a little bit of the aesthetic background and the focus on the object as an aesthetic thing, almost as a fine art unto itself, and really getting interested in ethical aspects and designing from an ethical point of view. So we've heard a little bit about moral hangover. KAVE sneakers are really, tuned in to the triple bottom line, the social, environmental, and financial. And they're really taking concrete steps to address a sort of moral or ethical criteria in their design approach, so that we have coffee, resourced coffee. We have aspects that are similar to what Megan is doing with clothing, that they're recycled, they're upcycled, they're used again. So people are buying products not just for aesthetic reasons, not just because they look amazing and they look beautiful, but because they have a moral and ethical dimension that is just as important as the material choices in the shoe, perhaps. Identity is more important than ever. So those are some of the places that I come from. I come from a broad generalist background, academia, museums, public art, seeing the intersection between these things where design perhaps a little bit more applied. When I was teaching at Cornish for 7 years, Cornish College of the Arts, a lot of programs in art schools have a design program and then they have a fine art program. And it's interesting that we have those two different programs when there's a lot of crossover, obviously, but my background is evidence of that sort of rich stew mix, combining a lot of different interests. So let me give you, Tyler, time to reflect on the other panelists, but great to be here as part of the Design Festival. I'm more interested, I guess, in the puzzle and the aspects. I guess there's an app Michael is going to tell us about. I'm prepared to walk you through a poem that he wrote about the shoes, so that help you experience the shoes. And I know experience is super important too. Megan, the whole experience with retail, looking and being part of the shoe is everything that we're going to talk about here today. So thank you, Tyler.
Thanks, David. And I have a question for, if I could start with a question, and then I'll get to you, Joey and Michael, in a minute. But you touched on something I wanted to ask about, and I think I may know your opinion, but I'd like to hear it from each of you. Do you consider recycled products used in apparel a fashion trend or more of an emerging necessity? And David, we can start with you, and then maybe Megan and Ava.
Yeah, I think, again, 10, 20 years ago, fashion trend. Today, necessity, increasingly necessity.
Megan?
Yeah, absolutely on board with what David said. I think it was something to, you know, as a convenient marketing tool, perhaps for some brands. But I think as people, as consumers get more aware about the detrimental impact that, textile waste is to the world, and all of the harms that are produced in communities who are surrounded, as Ava pointed out, the production of textiles, it is a crisis that I think is more and more urgent every day.
Landfills are filling.
And the landfills are filling, that's right.
With clothes and food.
And Ava?
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of greenwashing going around it. Because now it's really easy to put just green sticker on clothing, for example, H&M or these huge brands. They all claim that their clothes are from recycled materials, but what is the truth? How we can find it? So I, me honestly, I stopped to use these terms like recycled, sustainable, and all these because I think that we as makers, creators, should make these products in this way with these principles, but not to talk about it all days long.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of what we call greenwashing in the architecture profession, right? And it appears that through the various programs that I've heard today, that there's a genuine desire to really lessen the impact of production. So that's great to hear. I want to switch gears because I want to make some space for Joey. Joey, can you tell us about your work with the Audubon Park Society?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Oh, yes. Can you tell us about your work with the Seward Park Audubon Society?
Yeah, I've already mentioned, heard people mention Seward Park, and I know a number of you live close by to the park. You know that it's an amazing green space right here in the city. It has some of the oldest trees in the city, some first growth, and with that, you have everything from coyotes, otters, beavers, and so many birds that make their homes here or stop along their migratory route here. So what our work does is connect people of all ages, whether they're toddlers, teens, veterans, seniors, to opportunities to connect with the nature that's here. We know that having a thing in nature and building that love and that affinity for nature really gets people to be more concerned and act to protect that. And when you're protecting the places that birds and other animals need to thrive, you're also protecting the spaces that you need to thrive. So hopefully when they come to our programs, they'll be amazed about all the things that they've seen before, but are seeing through the different lens, that lens of being a naturalist, that lens of being an environmentalist, and then they take action, whether it's the way they're purchasing materials, whether it's the way they vote, whether it's the way they enjoy the outdoors. Hopefully they take those experiences and act in those ways to protect those spaces that we all love.
That's great. And your specific work with the Audubon Society, can you tell me a little bit about the environmental impact to bird migration?
Yeah. So, the country has four flyways, and we were being the farthest left one. We're going to be in the Pacific Flyway, and migration. Both the fall and spring migration. Each one of them, there's about 300 species of birds, and about 1 billion of them migrate through this flyway every year. There's actually online service that you can look at during migratory periods and see how many hundreds or millions of birds have flown through King County on any given night. It's called Birdcast, and it's open and available for anyone just to log on and see on any particular date what birds and how many birds are flying through this area. And it really kind of brings the experience up close and personal, just what migratory activity is going on. The big challenge right now is the places that these birds need to thrive. And these places provide nesting areas. They provide insects because of the plants that they have. They will produce insects that the birds need. I love going outside in late spring and looking up and seeing thousands of violet green swallows flying around in the air, and they're just backing up all the insects that will otherwise be biting at us later on in the year. And so when we don't have these things timed out and protected for these birds, the migration changes. We know these birds are really particularly linked to certain areas, and those areas are between Costa Rica and the northern parts of Canada. And there's stopping places all along those places. And if you're a bird like these hummingbirds, we have hummingbirds that are so linked in their migration, they will go to the same feeder in the same yard in the same neighborhood every year. And if that feeder is not there and if it's not full, then they're going to look around for a while. And we talk about the issues that when birds don't have the things that they need to thrive, they go to other places. And when a hummingbird goes to another hummingbird's location, another species of hummingbirds, they may outcompete that bird, and that bird may cease to exist or have to move on and find their own areas. So there's just a ripple effect of the things that go on when we don't protect these green spaces and all the resources that birds need in their migratory routes.
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't know that about hummingbirds. Reminds me that I need to probably fill up my hummingbird feeder.
Yeah, they're so very particular to that. We were actually engaged in a hummingbird study, and we took two of the three hummingbird feeders out of commission for this study, and the hummingbirds would still go there and hang around for about a minute, just looking around, trying to figure out where that food source is. It's something innate within them that you can't just change overnight. So it's a very powerful experience that is the need to migrate and find mates and find food across this flyway.
Well, thank you for that. We're going to come back for some questions about bird habitat in a minute. But Michael, I want to make sure you have some time. I wanted to ask you a much sort of broader question. Because we're talking about design here, I wanted to know from you, when you think of the word design, what comes to mind for you?
I think the
Uh-oh. Is he frozen?
the mind, it invigorates the body. Whatever's
Is it just me, or is he breaking up a little?
I know I'm experiencing a lot of streaming problems here. So I'll just try and state it very simply. Design has a way to reach and invigorate old thoughts to make them new. And it has a way of also release and relative place. When you're associated with a great design, all that way, you're simply, like I say, invested in what you're experiencing. And I think that's what Eva does with her product. She's that next level experience. And then you sit back and consider, how did it happen? Why did it happen? And how do I participate further?
Oh, looks like we lost him. Sure, we can, once he joins again, we can come back. But he did touch on an interesting note, this restorative nature of design. And it sounds like, again, there's a common theme here about that restorative nature. What I wanted to ask Eva, when you hear that, what does that filter into your design philosophy? I mean, how do you approach design for your company?
That's a really good question. I'm always thinking about the design from the other side because the common thing is that, that the designers are sitting at the table, drawing something, and then the product is actually going to the factory to be created. But I'm going from the other side. I'm always coming to the factory, checking how the factory and machines over there are working. And I'm trying to find some moments in the production which I can change, which I can tweak in order to create new product. So it's actually design driven by manufacturing processes. Because this is what is really important in design, I think, to use what we have and not always to invest billions of money. Of course, that you can innovate if you have billions of money, but I think that the real innovations are coming from the existing systems. We just need to find a way how to use them in different way.
Yeah, that's great to hear that you sort of think about um, the means, right, as well as the ends, and you start with the ends, kind of work back from there. Um, Megan, you touched on something about overproduction and overconsumption in fashion and in society. Can you tell me about like how Eileen Fisher's brand kind of evolved, and is it in response to that overconsumption that, you know, in Western culture we kind of have this throwaway culture, right, of clothing and other goods.
Convenience, yeah.
Yeah, I would, Eileen began as a designer. Before she became a clothing designer, she was a graphic designer. And so, I think there was an aesthetic that had driven her in terms of how she launched the brand and the aesthetic of the garments. I think at that time in the mid 80s, it was probably a little less connected to these ideas around consumption. I think that's something that evolved as she became more entrenched and aware of how the industry really at that time was shifting hugely, right? Like the centers of production were shifting in terms of like being, more local or domestic based here in the US and shifting overseas. How workers were engaged across, different markets. So I think it was an evolution of thought and through experience that led Eileen to, to a conclusion that, for her brand, for the way that she would create, or design into the need, would take these things into account, would to not create more harm. So I think it's something that evolved. I don't think that's where it all began. So I think you said something, and I just wanted to flip the word around it when you said it. You said the restorative nature of design, and I'm thinking, well, we have to design to restore nature, right? Like so, and I think this is, obviously fundamental to how KAVE and Ava represents her brand. I think that it is more and more how brands are going to have to, focus their own lenses of purpose to really think about what is restorative and how our products fit the urgency of the moment and people's needs around that. So I don't know if that directly answers your question, but I think that everyone is kind of, it may have started earlier, like Eileen Fisher has been on the forefront of this movement for, decades, I would say, in terms of being consciously producing less, right? Like creating a clothing system that grows with a person rather than just grows of its own, like grows thoughtfully rather than just grows out of like a need to produce and consume. Really a clothing system that is contained and expressive and evolves, with a person's needs across their life cycle and the clothing's life cycle. It is inherently works for our brand because of certain design principles and fundamentals in terms of how our clothes work together and work for the bodies that they are made for. And so I think that those other pieces towards sustainability and the way we use things, the way we create things, naturally play into that. And we've been lucky as a brand to be able to really lean in and express that. with authenticity and a true voice. I think a lot of brands struggle to be able to recreate that in their now, trying to identify how they can be true in this moment, as we called out of great urgency to kind of shift the paradigm of how we use things and produce and use things. So,
you mentioned two things that I think that we can discuss a little for, like, one, responding to this historical moment in which we have these serious environmental concerns. And Michael, I'd like to ask you, you have a community spotlight event coming up that's kind of related to this. Do you mind talking a little bit about that and elaborate on that event?
I hope that you're hearing me better now?
We can hear you.
Yes. Very good. So on Wednesday.
Uh-oh. We lost them again.
Yeah. Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So our goal is trying to deepen the connection that EVA has built. And behind that conversation, we're driving the brand statement called Drink and Walk Your Coffee. And the way we're doing that is generating what you call a sleuthing experience down Rainier Ave. And we will be in what you call designated locations, and we'll have installations there where participants move, and they're trying to experience clues. And when the clues are all pieced together, they have an opportunity to talk about what is the puzzle that this clue is pointing out? What is the problem space that this clue is actually engaging? And what place do we have to actually encounter or solve or reimagine that solution? And so part of that is going to be happening with the idea of an application. So it'll be interactive with the smartphone and also on the ground. So you have this kind of blended experience between the application, the software, and the grounded experience. Plus, we'll be highlighting other shoes. Now, in that circular conversation, there will be a lot of QR codes that ask you questions about climate change. What does it look like to you? What does it look like to the shade-grown farmer? How do you figure out your role in solving these problems? So we're looking forward to that. We think it'll be a great contribution. Also, how should I say, it kind of falls sweetly into what Eileen Fisher's doing as well.
That's great. I highly recommend everybody go check that out at the Community Spotlight event. I wanted to tie two things I heard today, or maybe elaborate on one of them. Ava, your shoes, you came up with this idea of infusing coffee beans into the soles of the shoe. What was your inspiration for that?
The inspiration was really simple. I'm a coffee lover. And when I saw how many tons of billions of tons of coffee beans are leftovers after you drink your coffee, so of course you can use it as a food for your plants, but it's not really happening in bigger scale. So why not to use a coffee to create new product? And the coffee is really light and it smells amazing. So just imagine that you take off your shoes at the evening and your feet smells like a coffee. So this was one of the strongest moment, and this is also the moment which is loved by customers.
That's great. And Joey, I wanted to connect the coffee production to some of the bird migration issues that you're looking at, and how coffee production can impact bird migration, and what can be done to minimize that.
Yeah, so there's no shortage of studies that talk about how shade-grown coffee produce higher yields of coffee and better quality, and certainly it supports birds, and birds support it. Many of the birds we talk about are eating all the insects that do serious damage to those coffee crops. So we're providing this respite, we're providing this opportunity for birds in their winter lands down there, places like Costa Rica and Honduras. And And by protecting those shade grown areas, we're also providing what we need both here in Seattle and around the world, and that's more trees. Seattle's urban tree canopy is in a huge state of deficit, and we're losing more tree canopy in a time when we should be growing it. When people think back to last year, last summer's triple digit temperatures, what did people do? You know, many people in Seattle don't have air conditioning. They went to the places where trees exist. They had to get outside because they're baking in these heat zones that are nothing but concrete and bricks. So we need to think, and this is where the design comes in. How do we provide spaces, these additional green spaces, whether they're rooftop gardens, pocket parks, in just neighborhood backyards, that increase the number of trees we have available here? The vertical gardens that we see on people's walls, those have an impact. You know, they're inviting places. They're places where people can actually go and cool off. And if you're putting in native plants, there are also places where birds can exist and enjoy, as well as other wildlife.
Yeah, and with all the development in Seattle, we need to find more places for respite. You know, more places that can temperate the environment. And just at the park, the block party, shade was it was a warm day, and everybody needed some shade. That's for sure. Um, I want to go back to Michael. I wanted to ask you a general question of what do you hope to achieve as an outcome of the Seattle Design Festival?
So my most important thing is that we definitely create what I would call some unique connections, endurable connections, just by like this panel circumstance that we experienced. And so in saying that, I want to first say thank you to you guys, because you stepping back in the community, creating the space for us to think about this problem of design is exactly what we need. And so walk away from this experience with more unique connections and more great design possibilities for minds like Eva and Megan to get together and ask the bigger question: how can we collaborate? How can we deepen our partnerships and involve more people? That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, it's a interesting way how this diverse group of people with different backgrounds have kind of come together and have these unique connections between all of us, and it's an interesting aspect. Oh yes, David, please.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that a little bit. We've talked a lot about environmental justice and climate, the necessity for climate change and recycling and upcycling. I also think there's a very strong social aspect to what KAVE is doing. This panel is a diverse panel. Shoes, sneakers, 50 years ago, there's a great quote that I'd like to share, that the single greatest moment to usher in diversity in fashion came from sneakers. And, we don't have environmental justice without social justice. And as we think about upcycling and recycling materials to make our products more sustainable, we also need to think about ourselves and who we are, and diversity of our staff, the shade-grown coffee growers themselves who are struggling to make a living in the mountains of Chiapas. Those are the people that we're also thinking about. So as we talk about birds, we should also, and climate and the environment, let's also remember the workers out there that we are also trying to help. A lot of them are people of color, and we need to bring them into the conversation of design and fashion as well. So I'd just like to add that on to what you were just saying, Tyler, and what Michael was also implying about the product.
Yeah, it certainly is multifaceted. Michael, you sent me an article. There's this B Corporation certification. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I think it touches on what David was talking about.
Oh yes, the B Corp certification, it's a platform that's thinking about the concepts of value and value streams and how we can have a metric or measure against that reflects today's circumstance, what's going on in today's social discourse from a business standpoint. And so if we delve deeper into it, the question of climate challenges. I don't think they are, how should I say, at their best on that. But that's where I think someone who is working on a PhD has a great need to say, look, my business is postured. We're strategically ready to handle that conversation. So Eva and Elaine Fisher, these are the kind of vanguards that can get out and help shape what looks like a new paradigm for the idea of the certification from the B Corporation. But that's what they focus on. How does the strategy and the measure better reflect our social concerns? So I think right on, and I think we can all get together and push more for the B Corporation to reflect needs are in this new set of conditions.
Yeah, I think the interesting aspect of it too is the transparency aspect of the B corporate certification and making companies more accountable for what they produce, material streams, and so forth. I think we're getting close to our time, so I would like to see if there are any comments in the chat. I think Trevor, have you put up any? I haven't been monitoring it. Okay, this is I think more of a comment than a question. But Be Happy writes that love that about how coffee is environmental and functional, not just a marketing angle. It kind of goes back to your Ava, your philosophy of how you design shoes, and it's more about the means than really the outcome.
Yeah, maybe I would just like to add something on the topic of recycling. That it's amazing to recycle all the materials and upcycle and do all these things, but sometimes we need to really dig more deeper, because then we run into the problem that in some cases recycling is less ecological than to use new materials, because for recycling we are using sometimes more energy, which is actually harming our environment even more than to use new material. So I am always saying, yes, recycle, but always think about it. Just recycle to the point where it makes sense. Because when you cross the border, you can damage a lot of things and you can damage the environment. And then all these greenwashing problems are coming in.
If I can just like step in on that thought real quickly, I think too it's about designing for that kind of cradle to grave, right? Like what happens to something when it's done. So it's starting from like this idea that we need to produce things in cleaner ways, right? Like investments in organic cotton for textile production, rather than all the polluting, you know, heavy industrial type of farming that strips resources from the land. How do we actually like make the original fiber cleaner and better for the people who are producing it, for the workers who are cutting it, and the products that we're using in our daily lives? And then how is that designed in, like how is the end of its life cycle designed into its inception, right? Like there should be a natural end of life that we can fold a product into, whether that's because it's compostable or regenerative in some way, or where its life cycle has a clear path. We should plan for it.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about like closed loop cycles, right? And
Absolutely.
Circular economies.
Yeah, circular economies, circular systems. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of companies, I mean, in an industry, in a company, you want to maximize profits, and you're really looking at how to design something to meet a need as cheap as possible, and that's as far as the thought process goes, right? But it really needs to be extended, like you said, cradle to grave, and heading off the grave. Like, how does it kind of feed back in, and continue its life as long as possible? And to what you said, Ava, at some point, it needs to be then brought back into the environment. So at the end of its circular life, how does it then integrate back into the environment? How does it decompose? How does it, does it go on to some other function at that point? I mean, I think if all industries thought in that manner, we wouldn't have land. We would be in a much better place, I think, environmentally.
But now, isn't that exactly why we're having this panel? Because Eva does exist, her product does exist, Eileen Fisher does exist. So I think we should be championing the signal they're creating, because of course, that environment, that is the old way of thinking, it's not going to just let go. We have to be much more proactive and pushing that agenda through the choice, like David said earlier, let that shoe become just that signal. That's it's a kind of a social challenge. It's a social ethos, but let us do that. Let us not wait for solution, right? Drive solution.
Well, yeah, and the fundamental principles of operating B Corp corporations should be normalized, right? Like it shouldn't be an exception to the rule. Operating with a triple B bottom line, it should be kind of where the baseline is in terms of how we really walk the walk.
Yeah, I'd like to say, go ahead, please.
With the B Corp status, there's some questions about how you measure these things. These things are so new that people sometimes are having challenges measuring sustainability and measuring some of the these different concepts that are rolling out that are kind of new. Some challenges with how do you measure those characteristics. It's interesting too that Eva first went to China and saw all the smog in like Beijing or something, and that was the initial impetus. Here we are. I think China is important to this conversation in the background because of capitalism and because of profit-driven companies in a free market capitalist society, where China is exploring with these free market zones like in Shenzhen, where they have capitalism with Chinese characteristics, they call it. So I do think eventually, to talk about what we're talking about, capitalism itself will be markedly changed or altered to bring in more of an ethical, sustainable, mode of doing business, and that would be a game changer.
Yeah, I think
I love that comment, David. Add to that. So Eva is working on her PhD, and I think in her PhD scope framework, it could be just that kind of synthesis. How should I say? Scrutiny of data that she gets back that asks that question. How do we firm up what it looks like to be a measure metric for sustainability into the current need facing climate change? That's the task that we have. And that's why I like the conversation of, hey, is this a puzzle, a problem, or a place? Now know the puzzle. We can see the problem. Let's generate the place. And I think Eva is ready to do that. And that's my put. I don't think we should sit back and talk about what should and shouldn't happen. I think we should sit back and go, here's what's going to be the next sky. This is what we're going to work towards.
I'm looking for the like button. I don't see the like button, but 2 thumbs up on that. Yeah.
Well, I think we are out of time, but I think it's also a really great positive note to end on. I did want to mention, Michael, your community spotlight event again. So please check that out. And I think we are. Oh, Joey, did you want to recite the poem? I don't know if Michael, did you want to share that, or do you want to keep that for the community spotlight?
It will be all over the community spotlight. You'll see it everywhere.
Okay, well, that'll be a little teaser for those who are going to join that event. Go check it out. So I want to thank everybody here for the wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed the panel discussion, and I hope the viewers did too. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great job, guys. Great job.
That was great.
Yeah, it's a really good conversation.
Excellent. Excellent.
And the community spotlight they mentioned is this Thursday evening in Columbia City. If you head down to the Columbia City Farmers Market, we'll have a spot there to direct you to all the things happening in the neighborhood that are part of the Columbia City Spotlight. Community Spotlight. Thank you. Wednesday. Thank you, Megan. Wednesday. Yes.
Thursday, Wednesday.
I'll tell you what. I'm going to put it up on the screen for a little bit here, so that way everybody gets it. But yes, thank you. Columbia City's Community Spotlight is Wednesday from 3 p.m. To 7 p.m. Well, what do y'all think? While I'm typing in this date and time.
It's 5 to 8 p.m. Sure.
Oh, well, our website says 3 to 7.
Oh.
We'll get that squared away.
We'll go with that for now. All right. Well, we've got more show to come here. We are going to take a look at what our design and community team has been doing. They have interviewed the Seattle Bouldering project, and we're going to take that away. It's an audio interview, but there's a accompanying slides to go with it here. Let's see if we can just pull that up now.
My name is Nathan Hadley, and I am the manager of the setting at the Seattle Bouldering Project Fremont location. I've been climbing almost my whole life. Started when I was 7, and the setting routes started in high school, just at my local gym. Doing this thing that's called route setting, and as I tried to kind of get to know the craft better and to grow and progress in it, I realized that it fit within kind of a design thinking framework. And I mean, what we are trying to do is create and curate an experience for other people to come in and enjoy. The climbers coming into the gym, new climbers or experienced climbers, these are the people that we're focused on building these routes for. Like this. Okay, that might turn it around. So every day we each person on our team will design and build, anywhere between 3 to 5 different boulder problems. A lot of what it looks like is I think the best analogy is that it's similar to doodling. Sometimes you just start making lines and shading certain areas in, and you kind of discover what you're trying to draw in the process of drawing. it's hard to describe, but yeah, there is sometimes a moment where we have, you know, the draft from the morning up on the wall, and we climb it initially, and we're like, okay, that's okay, that's fine. And there will be this moment where somebody or the group will all kind of, you know, see what it needs to be.
Like this. Okay, that might turn it or not.
And that's, I think, a part of the process that I really enjoy is you can have a rough idea in the morning of something you want to set up, but when you put your climbing shoes on, you experience it, and it's almost like the boulder problem can communicate like back to you. Like there's a certain kind of spirit there where it wants to be this thing. This is right. This is what we needed here.
The back end, right? Conversation. There'll be more of those each day. They've been recording those over the course of the year, and that will actually continue beyond the festival as an interesting thing. You can find that on our various social media as well as on cdesignfest.org. So, like we said, we're going to talk about what's coming up. We mentioned the Columbia City Community Spotlight. Tonight is the Fremont Community Spotlight from 5 to 8 p.m. Best way to find everything there is to head down to Fremont Brewing at 5 o'clock. There will also be some things going on at the Fremont Arts Council, which is the powerhouse for those familiar with Fremont, 3940 Fremont Ave North. Dow Built will also be hosting an open studio, so to speak, at 4001 Aurora Avenue North. And of course, we mentioned Code Unlimited is going to be doing their walking and rolling tour of the neighborhood. I believe they are starting from Fremont Brewing, so if you head there, you can get involved. And I do believe we'll have a table at Fremont Brewing, so you can stop by and say hello.
Yes, I will. I will be at Fremont at 5. If you'd like to come and chat about the festival or just learn any more about what's going on and how to become engaged or learning about volunteering, things like that, we'll be there from 5 to 8.
Yeah, for sure. And then we have the Columbia City Community Spotlight. So that's where the confusion is. The farmers market is happening from 3 until 7. But what we're calling our program from 5 to 8 will be the actual spotlight. So come on down at 3 p.m. and go to the farmers market and stick around and see the rest. That's probably the best hub location to start at. And then everything else that is happening is right around there to check out, including Eileen Fisher and where all the display locations for KAVE's shoes. So you can see those cool shoes that we've been talking about for the last hour. And then our last community spotlight will be Thursday, the day I thought Columbia City was. All day downtown. We won't go through every bit of that one. Again, cdesignfest.org has all the info about all the locations and places for that one. But do stop by the Center for Architecture and Design to both see some panels and get involved. Anything else we want to share today?
I think. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, George.
George is. It's like it's past your bedtime now. How late is it? How late is it in Budapest?
I'm telling you, I'm a vampire human combination. I didn't want to interrupt. Carl, go ahead.
No, please. It's your turn, George. Go ahead.
First of all, I'm blown away with the format and the way how we could learn other places. Just I made a lot of notes here, but going to Eva from the Czech Republic, that itself it's amazing representation of how exchange of ideas could be interesting. Just know that someone is from another part of the world, is here with us, and discussing some very interesting things. It's just I think it's really the way how we could improve not just design, but the way how we look at life. And I will just go through a couple of things that with this exchange of ideas, we will know each other better, obviously from other places of the world. So we will be exposed to totally new concepts, the ways how other people think, or even if the design or the topic is not particularly close to us, but because we will be exposed, that it will foster curiosity just by what's over there or how far it is and things like that. And then curiosity is the only way to be passionate about things. That's the way. So if we are not experiencing curiosity, it just fades away, like a lot of skills we have. Also, we prime ourselves to other point of views, obviously because it's far away, with no intention, just by the distance. It is a way we can flexible our mind, and so we will be open for other views, or at least know that there are other views exist, and that makes us less conflict prone and self-destructive, which it's proven. So it's build a constructive mindset, which is part of design. Design is a constructive, preemptive, and future proof. And so go a little bit farther on that, just a few minutes, but that Eva's project itself, it's a great story. But when she was talking about that, she has classes where she teaches how to make shoes. That's really grabbed my attention, especially combined with the way how she used materials to make the creations unique. See, it's brought me up an interesting research on the personal ornamentation. What is that meant during the human evolution? Because it's worth researching in, what made us better throughout evolution, and advanced us to make civilization what we know, because those skills are with us, and it's ingrained us, and it's chiseled millions of years, and they are perfected millions of years. So those are very powerful and successful skills and motions, thoughts, which worth to research and look at why they were so successful, and then see what happened with them, why in certain places we feel failures, and why we are not better than we are. Just a fact. And so, personal ornamentation, historically, it was basically a self-expression, and then show and tell of your creative and mental fitness. So that was, make yourself, paint yourself, and dress up, or feathers or whatever. That was a representation of how mentally fit you are, and creatively advanced. That was, it's basically show off that you are standing out. Now, those so these are inspired us, and made us think in a more way of how we could contribute without destruction, without competition, in a way where we can harm someone. So it's basically a self-advancement purely by analyzing yourself, and so that served us, millions and millions of years, and still does. But then, and this is not against design, what I'm saying, but it's just a fact. But then the consumer theory brought us designer clothes, which promise us to standing out and self-expression. But in a way, it's actually mute, or actually replacing and destroy our mental fitness, or way how we can approach that, how we can stand out, how we can be unique. So it is an interesting way, and I just wrote a couple of notes here, but to see that through this conversation we had, this how Eva make like classes, how to make shoes. I think it's really spark of that old wiring we have. And this show is made it possible that I heard about this. So, and this is why I think this whole thing is fantastic. That we have exposed to these kind of things, and I could talk about this, and I'm very happy to talk even more. But I let Carl to take it.
I was gonna say that's good because we got 2 more days of this.
Yeah,
And
don't
Cal,
worry.
what do we have coming up?
Sure, no problem.
Tomorrow and Wednesday.
Yeah, so tomorrow, starting at noon again and running until about 2 p.m., we have Samir Fouad coming in to talk about how public installations can create connections. We also have Black Star Farmers, and their talk is called Cultivating Connection Through Food Sovereignty. And then we have a pre-recorded talk from 2 students that provided an installation for the block party, their Team Labyrinth, and they're talking about their SDF installation. And then we have a virtual zine making workshop with Taylor Miles Hopkins at the end of the day. And that will be a little bit more interactive. So if you can grab a piece of paper, pens, things like that to just get ready for that workshop, I know she would appreciate that. And then Wednesday, again, starting at noon, going until about 2, we have Jamie Yen, Rosalie Yu, and Tara Kelton giving a talk on their presentation called Remote Proximity. We have Amy Brooks Thornton giving a talk about, or it's actually a video, a film called Sensing the Wood-Fired Oven. And then we have Mindy Lehrman Cameron giving a talk on her proposal for a downtown Seattle cultural center. And then we have another Seattle Designing Community, and then wrapping up that day is Future Arts, and their presentation is called Designing for IRL/URL. So please stop by the next 2 days. We're really excited about all the other speakers and presentations. And if you can't come, it'll be on YouTube afterwards.
Yes.
It's going to be a packed few days.
Yes.
Yes. We're on Twitch now too, as of 30 minutes before we went on air. We're everywhere. And then don't forget the community spotlight tonight. So we'll see everybody at Fremont.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. It was fantastic.